Hi, this is Hans Hartmann. I'm the co-chair of Visual First, our conference that will start October 4th and 5th. More about it is on our website, visualfirst.biz. Right now, dive into the podcast.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and Independent Photo Imagers. Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I am your host, Gary Pageau, and today we're joined by Daniel Agee, the head of community and marketing for a new company called Glass. Hi, Daniel. How are you today?
I am doing swell. How are you?
Good. Now, for the folks who aren't aware of Glass, you've been around for a while, but you've got a big announcement coming up this week. But before we get into that announcement, tell us a little bit about who Glass is and how you got to where you are today.
Yep. So Glass officially launched a year ago this week. So in a couple of days, we have our 1-year anniversary. We started out as a iOS-only photo sharing platform. Our big difference is that you pay a small monthly fee and we give you 0 ads, 0 algorithms. You just get to have a nice time with other photographers, wholly focused on photography and photos, no videos, no full screen ads, just great photos. So that's our tweet pitch is your photos deserve a home on the internet that doesn't actively hate you.
So you're a pretty small company. Tell me about like the founders and yourself, how you got started, how you met, and how you decided that you're going to try and get people to pay for something that otherwise they get for free everyone else while they're being monetized.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're not paying for your product, you are the product.
Yeah.
Right. Like we serve Instagram. Instagram doesn't serve us.
Mm-hmm.
So my co-founders are Stefan and Tom. Tom Watson was an early designer at Facebook and Pinterest. He was, like first dozen designers at Facebook. And so he saw firsthand what happens when you build a company solely for advertisers and for your investors as opposed to for the users. Mm-hmm. And he started to get really tired of that and wanted to build something specifically for the members of your platform. And they met at Framer, which is a design platform company. Mm-hmm. They were Stefan was one of the main engineers at Framer. They met. They've been talking about this idea for a long time, and it was finally time to do it about 3 years ago. So they started working on Glass regularly at the end of 2019, and we launched last August on August 12th. Tom and I met when we were both living in Portland. Almost a decade ago. Mm-hmm. He had just left Facebook and moved back to Portland, and we were at a tech meetup. And I was arguing, it was the day that Swarm and Foursquare became separate apps. Mm-hmm. Foursquare announced that, hello, this is now, your check-ins are over here. And I remember
we're going to kill our company.
Exactly. And I remember being like really, really angry about that because I loved it, right? I loved checking in. I was a GoWally user, but like I really loved that social aspect of it. And so I had really strong opinions about it. And this new friend in the group was just there arguing with me the whole time about like all the business decisions and stuff. And I was like, I don't. And we were like, I was getting like really frustrated, but because he was like doing really well. Right. Yeah. And I was like, anyway, so tell me about yourself. Let's stop talking about this dumb thing. After like arguing with him for an hour about location, he was like, well, I just left Facebook where I was one of the lead designers on their location product. And I was one of the people that helped acquire Gowalla. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, so you have like all data backing up your arguments. Great. So he and I were like best friends immediately. And shortly after that, we went to lunch solo. And I told him about a failed art magazine idea I had. And he told me about this idea for what became Glass. So Tom had been like noodling on this idea for almost a decade by the time that we actually started building Glass. Mm-hmm. And then it was Glass is entirely self-funded. We don't have investors. We don't have advertisers, because if we had those things, we would have to build the product for investors as opposed to for our community members. But because of that, it also meant our development timeline to launch was a lot longer than a lot of startups, because we didn't raise $5 million, go to the moon and then disappear a year later. Right. So
you didn't have a quick burn rate because you didn't have anything to burn.
Exactly. So it was a nights and weekends project for almost 2 years. We launched August 10th last year. I knew it was coming, right? So I got my start on the internet and in my career as a photographer and a studio manager for a portrait studio outside of Washington, D.C., right? Like weddings and family portraits. And like our big bread and butter was like senior portraits, right? So like I've done all of, like cut my teeth in the photography.
Do you want to share who that is? They probably are a listener.
I do not. It did not end well. We grew a successful business and then they retired to a beach somewhere. And I started marketing for startups. And so I, really fell in love with photography online in the early Flickr days when there was a community there.
Right. Yeah, because I get a Flickr vibe from you guys, actually. I mean, that's kind of interesting because there are paid services like this, like Flickr out there. So I was just kind of curious that you were kind of inspired by Flickr. So
I love SmugMug. I love that SmugMug bought Flickr and kept it alive. Yep. But, we can also speak honestly that the vibe in the community that was there for early Flickr in 2004 and 2005, 2006, et cetera, is not there anymore, right? Like 2009 Flickr is never coming back. Right. And, what was exciting was the community and the groups that existed, and those don't exist anymore, right? Like, to the same level that was inspiring and created passion in people. And so, we were looking at the market and we wanted to create a home for photographers where they were the focus as opposed to the first adopters who we would build our company on their backs and then pivot away from them because we need a larger audience, right? Like we think photographers are a wonderful audience to build a business with and for.
No, but when you say photographers, are you talking about, I mean, I don't have to tell you, there's all kinds, right? Yeah. There are those who are doing it as a hobby. Those are those who are doing it for as a, kind of as a side hustle or a gig. Those who are, making a career out of it, and they maybe want to be an influencer or something like that, sell workshops and make appearances at WPPI or whatnot. So they go from the ground up, right? From the moms with a camera on up. So the question is who is your early customers? Who are those folks?
So our current customer base for the first few months were just, early tech adopters who were excited about a new platform that will sign up for anything, right? Like that's that's always your first, I'm one of those people. That is not a disparaging thing. Like I adore.
I mean, how many dead accounts do you have everywhere, right?
Not that many. We're doing pretty great.
No. I mean, dead accounts from things you've signed up for that have died.
Oh, me personally? So many, right? It is endless. And so like one of the, the dead account thing is one of the things that we're trying to like solve for with Glass is that like, it's really nuts to us that photographers have to just go from service to service to service to service. Mm-hmm. I was talking about this the other day with Tom about how like 2012 internet isn't coming back. And that's a good thing. And that's, like we shouldn't be scared of that, right? The cries for Instagram to return to photos only and like, give me my chronological feedback and give me, it's not going to happen for a lot of reasons.
I mean, if we're going to get topical here, I mean, that's the backlash against Instagram is very topical right now. And probably a great opportunity for you. Good timing, Instagram.
It is a wonderful business opportunity for us. And we are meeting that opportunity very well. It's a very exciting time to join Glass. You should join Glass. There's a coupon code in the comments or in the show notes. Go, get your first year for $20. I remember I posted on Medium a lot back in 2012, 2013, 2014, that sort of thing. And you used to be able to post a single story on Medium with like 1,000 Twitter followers and get 50 to 100,000 views on Medium instantly, right? You used to be able to take Uber for $5 to go across town, as opposed to $20 to go down the street. So there was like this version of the internet that was entirely venture capital funded, right? Where they gave us a bunch of they burned billions of capital and they gave us a bunch of attention, and now it's time for them to earn that back, right? And so like how they earn that back is selling ads on videos, right? And like, or for Uber's case, it's like jacking up the prices, or for Medium's cases, it's being, I have no idea how Medium's earning that money back. They're not, right? Like,
well, but the interesting thing is, I think it's backfired on them to some extent, the people with that approach, because they've trained people not to pay for things.
Yep. I mean, like that's a hard thing for us too, right? We're running into that all the time, which is why we offer a free trial, which is why, like our monthly fee is relatively cheap. Our yearly fee is even cheaper. So glass costs $5 a month or $30 a year. But you can always get your first year for $20 somewhere, such as the show notes. That was a really good one. So like, well done. Thank you. But, like the paying for a thing on the internet is kind of like magical, right? Like knowing what you're getting out of it and knowing that, like we have a feedback board that has hundreds of feature requests and comments. And that's how we set our roadmap, right? Like our biggest release is coming in a couple of days or just came out, depending on when this gets posted, which is what we're calling, it's called Glass Anywhere. So right now you have to have a Apple account to sign up for a Glass account. You have to have, it was Apple ID only. So we're releasing Glass Anywhere this week, where you'll be able to use email, password, and start subscription online. So anyone on any platform, any phone, any computer, doesn't matter. You will be able to sign up for Glass and publish your photography to a community that like gives a damn about photos and only photos.
So let's talk a little bit about, before we get down into the newer offering, get back to the app a little bit, because it has a real photography first feel about it, right? If you look at the app, if you look at how the images are presented, there isn't a lot of wasted space in displaying the images. Obviously that's on purpose. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Photos are awesome, right? Like photos are really cool. My grandfather is the one who got me into photography when I was a child. He gave me his Canon AE1 as a gift when he was, in his 80s and I was 7, like on family vacation together in Michigan. And it's like looking back on the images that I made with him over the years through my teens, it's like this beautiful time travel thing for me, right? Where like I can instantly remember what that field smells like outside of Holland, or I can, like instantly recall what that creek smells like, or how I felt in the sun, that sort of thing.
There's a lot of stinky creeks in Michigan.
So many stinky creeks in Michigan. Not gonna
deny it.
Visit Michigan. It's beautiful, but watch out for the creeks, slow moving creeks. And so, like I've always really loved photos, and, like Tom has similar stories from, being a kid on vacation in Hawaii, being given a disposable camera and just like being blown away by the magic of it. And, like as they became ubiquitous online, when our phones got increasingly better, right? Like iPhone came out and then suddenly everyone cared about cameras in phones, that like marked a real shift with how we treated photography in a really great way, but also in like a bummer of a way, right? Like it has been wonderful to have photography proliferated to the masses and to like have cameras become more and more affordable and have higher quality images being created from anywhere. It's like Ratatouille, the Pixar movie, right? Like anyone can cook. It's not that everyone is a cook, but like anyone can become a cook. Same sort of thing with photography. Like that's what's so beautiful about it. And so we had this like shining moment on the internet for like 5 or 6 years, where like photography was the social currency of the internet, where like posting photos, how you put, like Twitter didn't have active image hosting on Twitter for like the first 5 years it existed. You had like TwitPic and Imagely and Imager and all these different services just to put an image somewhere to match your words. And now that it's ubiquitous everywhere, they like have kind of gotten devalued in a way that is unfortunate, because they're harder to monetize, right? They are not devalued because of how we feel about photos, but they are devalued because of how investors and advertisers feel about photos, right? Like if you're stuck in a TikTok tunnel of just watching endless videos, you're not going to mind an ad, right? Like an ad pops on, it's fine. A YouTube ad starts at the beginning of the thing, whatever. It's just an ad. We'll watch it for the first 15 seconds and click skip. As opposed to photos where it's like, oh, I'm looking at a photo. There's no place to put in an ad.
Right. It's interesting to say that, because that was always one of the things. I mean, I go back a ways. So I remember back when digital cameras came out, and then they started adding video to digital cameras. And they were talking about, so there's a lot of discussion back then about the difference between a still photo and a video, right? And the differentiation I always went back to was a still photo is active. It requires brain power, because you have to figure out what's going on, right? You have to interpret what the image is, the situation, whatever. As soon as you see a video, you go passive because you're waiting for it to tell you something. Yeah. Right. You don't have to work as hard. So it's just a different way of engaging with the content. And people think they're interchangeable, but they're really not.
I think there's a big difference between like online video and like movies, right? Like I love movies. I love cinema. I love like storytelling and craft. And, those things exist in Vine and they exist in TikTok, but it's a different type of emotion. And I feel like it's accessing a different set of tools in your brain, right? Like I think that's a really great way to describe it, how you talked about it. And so like photos are wonderful. And so we wanted to build a platform on like, no. Like we value photos. We as a company, as people that run a company, we value photos. And what if our business model matched that? What if our business model was built for other people who also valued photography in the same way that we do, as opposed to trying to sell ads, right? Like we get asked all the time, when are we going to have a free version of glass? And it's like, well, never say never, but right? Like, because it's just not a high priority for us. Because like the how we would give a free version of glass is we'd give a free version of glass and then put ads in between the photos, and then suddenly the magic of glass is gone, right? Like how you feel when you use glass and how you feel when you're looking at just a wall-to-wall feed of images, right? So like, go download glass, and when you do, you'll see on this, on the main feed on the phone, it's just photos. On the main feed in iPad, depending on how you're holding it, it's 2 to 3 columns of just photos. On the website, it's just 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 photo wall, masonry grid, beautiful photos. You want more information, you have to click through, right? That same sort of thing. Like we have our version of the like button, which is we call it appreciations because it's private, right? Like what would a like button be if it didn't power an ad network? It would be appreciations, right? It's entirely private between the appreciator and the appreciatee, and there are no public counts anywhere on Glass. So like everything is just a personal thing. So like, man, Gary, I really love this photo. Click, that they tapped through to your photo because there's no way to do it from the main feed. So you tap through to their photo, you click the button, and then there you go, right? So like that's the same thing with like how we do commenting. Like we didn't launch with a like button specifically because we wanted commenting to be the main thing you could do in the app for the first few months. So it would set a community tone for how comments are used. Because right now comments are like a high value, high ask thing that a lot of people don't do, right? You double tap, keep scrolling. You don't actually talk about the photo or talk about what you're seeing. So we were like, okay, what if that's the only thing you can do? And it was wonderful, right? Like when we launched Appreciations 4 months later, we didn't see a dip in comments because people kept commenting because it was built into how the community functions.
So do you have to use images just from the phone in your app? Let's say, for example, we're not doing the web thing yet. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So how can you bring images into Glass? Do they have to be from the camera roll? Are there other services you can bring them in from? Let's say, for example, you have an image somewhere else that you want to bring in.
Yeah. We launched our web version of Glass in April. So you can upload from any desktop, any browser, anything. Before that, you had to use an app. So you could export from the camera roll. You could export directly from Darkroom or Lightroom to Glass in the iOS share sheet. But it was all on device. So for like those older photos that I had that I wanted to get on my Glass profile from 2009 or whatever, like my first really great
Creek photo.
Really, exactly, like a Creek photo or a time lapse. The first time lapse I ever took with a Canon 20D, and like, woo, 30 seconds, I figured out bulb mode, right? Sort of thing. That I had to like email to myself back in the day to then get it up. But now it's just anywhere your photos are, you can upload your glass.
Okay, great. So now you've got an announcement this week on the next iteration.
Yep.
Can you share a little bit more about that decision process? Because you sound like you had a very distinct vision of glass. Was this always in the roadmap, or is this something your people have asked for that you are advancing towards?
So when we were planning for like how our first year of glass would look, I was actually slow on how well I thought our development process would go. I was hoping to launch an iPad app on our 1 year anniversary. And we will launch that in February, 6 months after we launched, because it was time for a photography community to have an iPad app. iPad users deserve to see really great photos,
right? And
using a 2x version of an iPhone app is not a great experience. So I wrote down a list personally of like what we wanted to see, because if you launch with your full feature set as a company, right? Like if you launch with the full feature set of like what you're envisioning as your V1, you've launched too late. And so, like we definitely launched with a minimum lovable product and like grew from there. And so I wanted to have an iPad app, and I wanted to have a web version. And then I was hoping within 2 years, we'd be able to open up outside of the Apple ecosystem. We did all of that in a year. So the main reason that we're excited about this feature, Glass Anywhere, is that you'll be able to sign up for a Glass account anywhere, on any phone, anything you want in the web browser. And not to brag, but Instagram took $10 million and had 25 employees or whatever, and it took them 18 months to launch an Android app. And we are doing that 6 months faster with 3 people and a contractor. Not to brag, without VC funding, it's fine. I will happily never brag about that. And so like that's really exciting for us. But like the main reason is like we don't care what type of phone you use, right? Like I remember back in like 2013 or whatever it was when Instagram launched on Android, and everyone was so mad, right? Because like,
we don't want those people in our...
we want, right? Like they were like somehow bigoted against like camera phones. They were like, iPhone's the best, right? But like a Pixel 6 takes incredible photos, right? Like
Samsung makes great cameras.
Yeah, like a Samsung S22 Max, or they have a bad naming convention, but their cameras are incredible, right?
Yeah. It kind of goes back to the old, Mac OS and Windows biases, right? Where it's like, the Mac, maybe it's just an Apple thing. They just think, again, I'm an Apple user, so I've seen it from the inside, the biases and the prejudice there. And you're not hurting yourself. And nowadays, you're not hurting yourself if you're on Windows. It's fine. Yeah, and same thing with the mainstream Android. You're not hurting yourself.
Right. Like we understand there are reasons why someone would want a different phone than an iPhone, right? Yeah. Like it could be affordability, because iPhones are expensive as hell. Yeah. Right. Like it could be they want more control over their experience. Like there are reasons, and they're all valid and fine. Yeah. The only reason that we launched iOS only is because we're a small team and we were building this nights and weekends at the time. Right. So like we had to start somewhere. We're iPhone users, so we started there. And like candidly, developing for iOS is significantly better than developing for Android. That is like, sorry, everyone. But like, so the tools that Apple gave us as developers were really helpful for getting us off the ground. But like, we were never going to be a walled garden that was specifically just for Apple users.
So built into the system, do you have any editing features or anything like that, or is it just more or less a gallery display?
It is all just a community. So we have public profiles if you want to turn it on. They're optional, because that's That's a decision that we can make because we don't have investors, right? Like if we had investors, we would have to make every single profile on Glass public because we would need the views. We would need people sharing it everywhere, but you can have a private account. So if you don't have your profile turned on, you can just use Glass and every member can see your profile, but no one outside of Glass can. But you can turn it on and use it as a gallery if you'd like. So we have multiple members that have just replaced their portfolio because they were tired of dealing with Format or Squarespace. And are like, whatever, this is good enough. I have a good enough showcase of my images. If this is not going to sell someone, right? Like if this like gallery of 60 wonderful wedding photos isn't going to convince someone to click an email button, then bummer, right? Like no perfect Squarespace site is going to fix that, right? So like people use it as portfolio. And then, sorry, totally lost the thread. It's wonderful. There are wonderful little things that we get to do because we don't
from
have
a business
investors.
case standpoint, because you aren't compelled to monetize every user. There's things you can provide more user choice because of that.
Exactly. And one of the, like as we talk more about that and as we talk about like the decisions that we're making now moving forward, right? Like what features we're prioritizing, like after this, we're releasing our next features after Glass Anywhere are going to be camera feeds. So like I am deeply fortunate that I lucked into owning like a Q2 at a reduced rate. Like trade bartered services and got a Leica Q2 as payment, and it was wonderful. And like this camera has totally changed my life and how I view photography because it's a small enough thing that I can carry it with me and it does powerful enough things. And so in a month or two, you'll be able to tap in the metadata on Glass, tap the Leica Q2 button and see every photo taken from Leica on Glass, right?
But that's only Leica, no other camera platforms.
Yeah. Sorry, Canon. You have to send me R5 to get that. So any camera metadata will be like clickable, so they'll be able to see whatever camera bodies are taking those photos. Is that exploration feature going to get us hundreds or thousands of new users? No, right? But like they're going to make our current users happy. It's going to make me happy, right? Like I'm excited to find other photographers this way. And so that's a feature we get to prioritize because we don't have to always be like harping on hockey puck stick growth where like, line goes up and to the right forever and high. And, we need to double our users in a month. We need to like all of that stuff goes out the window and we can focus solely on like building a sustainable business that isn't going anywhere. Right. Like go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just thinking, so how do you envision your users using your platform? Now, I got the feeling you feel like you've got some professional photographers who are using it as sort of a portable portfolio, if you will, or maybe now a web-based portfolio. So there's that so there's sort of like the commerce aspect of it. And then there's, I'm sure the high-end amateur aspect of it. So I'm just curious, do you have a breakdown on that? Just curious how that shakes out, because I'm trying to figure out like where you go next. And it seems like that's sort of a finite world.
Yeah. So we talk about Glass as a community, not a marketing channel, right? Like Instagram stopped being a place to have fun with photography years ago. And now it is QVC with DM on it, right?
It's influencers is what it is.
Yeah, right. Like it is wall-to-wall ads and trying to sell something, and it's a marketing channel for photographers. And we have some members who have come over from Instagram who have like 10,000 followers on Instagram. They've built up a following for years, and they have, like we don't have public numbers. So like you would have to count your followers to figure out how many followers you have on Glass. But we had one who did that. He was like, yeah, I have 57 followers on Glass, and I have more engagement interaction on my photos on Glass than I do on Instagram, because having 10,000 followers on Instagram doesn't mean anything because only 0.5% or 2% of your followers are actually seeing any given post you do. And if you're not dancing like an asshole, then it's going to be less. Right. So like, if you're not doing reels, if you're not doing whatever they're trying to tell you, and there's so much magic when you are creating art for yourself, as opposed to creating marketing for an algorithm. So someone can hopefully see your art. Right.
Yeah. That always kind of struck me as, I'm not sure when it actually happened. Maybe you do, but there was a point where it stopped being about displaying content and it became about optimizing towards the algorithm, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've got to have my video's got to be 8 seconds long at least, or else they won't show it, or whatever, and that seems
gets more things. So like male photographers have started like posing for their like quick little chat before they show their photos in their reels without their shirt on for some reason, right? Like I'm a ceramicist in my hobbies, right? Like I like making pots and like cups and mugs and stuff. I'll send you a mug someday. And that there are now just a bunch of like shirtless men ceramicists on Instagram, because they have found that it does light years better if they don't have a shirt on when they're making a mug, as opposed to if they have a shirt on while they're making their mug. That's terrible.
Yeah. And that's just funny, because I'm thinking, back in college, I took a ceramics course. I threw my share of pots and mugs and whatnot. And that's not something you want to do bare skinned.
Yeah. You want a shirt and like a full
an apron.
Like an apron that catches all the clay. You want to wear Crocs because your real shoes will get wrecked. Anyway, so like that's like the type of stuff that's happening when it's like they're just trying to sell a pot, right? Like they're just trying to show people a nice thing they made. And photographers are just the oldest creators on Instagram that are getting screwed over by these changes right now. And so, like what happens when you start getting inspired by your art again, and what happens when you start shooting for yourself and like making things is a really wonderful little thing. And so, like when we talk about the future of glass, it's like we don't ever want it to be that level of a marketing channel, which is not to say that we don't want to help our members make money. It's just never going to be the full focus of the community product.
One way to monetize images these days, of course, is to print them. Put them on different surfaces and things. Is that something you guys is in the plan, or is that something that is not something you are looking to do? Because I mean, coming from my audience, where they're going to say, well, this is great, I would love to be able to put some of that stuff on some media of some sort.
Here's another fun thing that we can do, because we don't need to keep people in the app, right? Like we support links in captions and comments, as opposed to having a single link in your bio. You can have links everywhere. And so are we going to create a better point of sale service than like Shopify or Format or the other printers or print on demand people? Or is it easier just to support links?
Right. Okay.
And so like we have photographers that sell their images on glass that just like, in their caption, like, hi, buy this here. And then they do, because you can, right? Because like, we don't care about keeping your eyeballs in the app.
And honestly, I mean, if you're getting their subscription revenue, do you really need to have a percentage of every print sold?
Yeah, like that's not an interesting or a meaningful revenue source for us, as opposed to the complexity that would add to our product when like these services already exist, right? The photographers that are making money on selling prints are gonna just keep doing that, but they can post a glass and just share a link. For another example of that would be like we support Twitter previews. So if you tweet a glass link to one of your photos, it displays nicely in the tweet, as opposed to just showing as glass.photo, /Daniel/gobbledygook. It just was like, hello, here's your nice, beautiful photo, because we want the photo to look the best at all times.
Right.
So there are like so many of these little decisions that we can make that add up to this like larger, nicer community. Another one of those would be like we have a community code of conduct that has a no hate speech and no white supremacy clause in it. That's just like, hi, nope, you don't get to do that here. No spam, none of that nonsense. And then it gets enforced, right? Like, so, but with that, we've also only removed a handful of spam accounts and like 4 photos. And I think like 3 comments, right? Like we can count on both hands this amount of content we've had to remove in a year of thousands and thousands of members and thousands and thousands and thousands of photos that have been uploaded to Glass. We've had to remove a handful, right? And like these are all the little differences that exist. And like I'm as a queer man, I can't really exist on the internet without running into homophobia. Just because that's that's the state of the world and the internet, but haven't run into it on Glass, right? Like that's like a wonderful thing worth protecting and fostering. And so like we're, as an independent company and as a startup in the photo space, we are thrilled to make it to 1 year and have, like significantly further along on a sustainable business than we thought we would be, and like have more members and are like actively growing month over month. It's all like our business is healthy, our community is healthy, we ship a product update once every 4 to 6 weeks. Like everything is clicking, and it is a thrilling time to like be building on the internet, because photographers are ignored a lot, right? Like we use their images to build the thing, and then we toss them aside, or get acquired 5 times by 7 different companies, right? Like,
now I was curious about when you said about the no hate speech and whatnot. Does community police itself, or how does that happen?
Yeah. So like one of the things that we talk about, aside from code of conduct, we had a couple of day one features that we launched with that are very rare for social networks and or people in general to care about, right? So we had reporting, blocking, and download your data and account deletion. So you can report a comment, you can report a profile, you can report a photo, and that goes straight to us, and then we deal with it immediately.
Okay. And that can be done anonymously. Like, for example, let's say somebody were to post something that was questionable, and somebody sends a report, you'll get the report, then you kind of decide, this crossed the line, this doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then we also had account deletion. So you could download all of your data, all of your photos, and then delete the account, as opposed to not, right? Like just most of the time people say not, right? Like, no, we're going to keep that forever because it helps our numbers for our investors. Yeah,
exactly. That's one of the things I always hear about is like, I deleted my account on blankety blank, but it's still there. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Right. Like I mean, like, I don't know if it's still this way. I assume it is, but like you had to go through like a 90-day window of deactivation on Facebook before they delete your account, that sort of thing. Like that's silly. Well,
the other thing they have now is legacy account. You die and people can keep the account alive. So it's a user, but they're just from beyond the grave.
Yeah, everyone on my family, whoever listens to my podcast, if I'm dead, please delete my Instagram. Like, please do not keep my bad dog photos online. They don't need to be there.
So you've launched Glass Anywhere, and that's really like, from what I feel, and that's available from any web browser. So even like if you were to have it on a big screen TV and you could access a web browser through that sort of thing. I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities there.
That's to be clear, do not sign up for Glass on your Samsung Smart TV. It's going to act badly, but it's going to look great. But yeah, so anywhere.
What do you mean your TV is going to act badly? It's going to start showing you 70 sitcoms, or what's the...
No, I mean, like, that's not an optimal viewing. Typing in a credit card number with a TV remote is terrible. So, I want you to avoid that. So sign up and then log in on your TV. Don't be surprised if we eventually launch an Apple TV app, because like it's right there.
It wouldn't make sense, right?
Right, like you want to see your photos on the biggest screen. Well, have we got a huge screen for you? Yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, I've done some Google Photos on my Samsung TV, and it, it's great. It's not, it's not high art or whatnot, but it is a good way to share photos in real life in a group rather than passing around a phone.
And so there's a lot of exciting things that are happening with that. Like we're really thrilled to get it in front of more people, right? Like 80% of the world uses Android phones. That's a huge market that we haven't been able to address. And then, like it opens up a lot of, creativity that just wasn't there, right? Like we'll eventually have a Windows Store app. We'll eventually be in the Google Play Store. We'll be, like we'll be everywhere you expect. But right now, just, like web browsers rule, the internet rules. And so like just being able to enter a credit card and like have a service on your browser is going to be really great. And, like candidly, I don't know how to say this without sounding strange. Phones are a terrible way to look at photos. Like phones are a terrible way to experience like great photography. They're a really wonderful way to like send and share a silly photo of your dog or like a fun photo from a birthday or whatever. But like there are certain images that just like shine the bigger you get them. So, like we noticed that when we launched our iPad app in February, we just immediately started using our iPads all the time, right? Like whenever we were looking at glass, we were just using our iPads because it was the biggest screen available. Right. And then, like now that we have Glass for the Web in April and Glass Anywhere that's out now, I use Glass on the web like 95% of the time. I rarely use it on my phone because it's just such a better experience to see bigger photos, right? Like,
just one small technical point, I'm kind of curious because most of, and again, this is going to go down a rat hole. So if it does, what the hell.
I'm ready.
But, every device you've talked about here is, smartphone, iPad. Most of the Windows machines now are touch enabled, except for the Macintosh. Is it a different experience on the web with those devices because you can't touch the screen?
Well, I mean, our web version of Glass is very well done. And so you will, like you'll be able to tap into it and use your hands. Right. Like, we own a Microsoft Surface and we do testing on a Surface. It's great, right? Machine. Like that level of great machine. It's like, don't get me wrong. I am legitimately excited to get into the Microsoft Store, right? Like, I think there are just so many silly things that we can do as a company, like prioritize being in stores on everything instead of like, just Apple, because that's where the most people are going to be for us.
But I'm just saying, I mean, from a technical standpoint, that is like an anomaly, right? If you're using Glass on a MacBook, you can't do the normal things like you could on an iPad.
One of the things that we do that's a little different is like we don't have usernames on our main feed. You on the iPhone, you do what we call peek, which is you can pull the photo to the side to see who is it in the first part of the caption, and then you can slide it all the way over and it'll just open the photo. And so our on the web, if you mouse over, you get to see the name. So like that's, like, so they're like minor,
but they're things you had to do is what I'm
just because, developing across multiple platforms is terrible, right? Like it is making apps is hard. We are like 15 years in an app store now, right? Because it came in iOS 2 and we're on iOS 16. So we're 15 years in an app store and this has been going on a long time. And like, Apple is wonderful. I love them as a development partner and as a distribution partner, but like, man, making apps is hard. And like, there's so much work that goes into these that like people don't know about, right? When we talk about how we're launching Glass Anywhere this week, people say, oh, just use Stripe for payments, you're set, right? But like, that doesn't handle your account system. That doesn't handle all of the back-end emails that need to be sent and the cancellation emails and the, like coming up for renewal emails. Like there's so much work that still goes into these things, that so much care and so much effort that like every time someone comes out with a thing, it feels like a miracle to me, right? Like being, like I've been working on the internet for 15 years now, professionally for 20, between photography and marketing on the internet. Every team I've ever been a part of, it just feels like magic when something ships, right? Like, like an actual app exists because like the internet is held together by duct tape and like sheer will of Jeff Bezos and AWS, right? Like that's it. It's an exciting time to be building, but it's still like so much work. And so the little features and the little stuff that we get to change that like gives a platform personality that's a little different than other stuff is just, like a nice little bit of love as opposed to.
So if people want to experience the love that is Glass, where do they go and to get more information and to sign up, hopefully?
Okay. Well, first you go to the show notes and you tap the glass.photo/offer/deadpixels link, which will give you $10 off your first year of Glass.
Nice.
And that will take you to the sign up page. You'll sign up, you'll create your profile, and there you go. Now you're in Glass. But if you'd like more information before you sign up, go to glass.photo. You can read about our multiple platforms there. We have pages dedicated to iPhone, iPad, and the web. And, you should also find us on Twitter because I'm very good at tweeting.
Nice.
That is my job, and I am proficient at it. And that is twitter.com/tryglass, because all the good usernames are taken everywhere, except on Glass, where you can maybe get a good one.
Thank you for your time and your generosity with your discount code, and and best wishes for the continued success of Glass. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, let's do this again next year.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.